turns things on and off, and it makes magic sounds and all kinds of stuff.
It's not even working, man. Yeah, see, we got a learning curve on this. Like, there's no harp music. There's supposed to be harp.
Yeah, where's my harp music?
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah.
That is,
Remember when, John, we first met? And
that is hysterical.
remember?
Wow. Are these pre-programmed or did you program that?
No, I put that in there.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. All right, let me get that camera going. What are we doing on that?
Can I do it over here, or you got it? I got it. Okay. I got it.
Arizona is a wildly beautiful place, brimming with over 100 brewing companies. I'm Rob Fulmer, the Executive Director of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm joined by Deputy Director Andrew Bauman. Together we cover the state, bringing you the best of what's happening at our breweries and beyond. Welcome to Arizona Beer Frontier.
We're here today to talk about the 988 beer, and we're here to talk to brewery members in Arizona, but also across the country, because we want people to participate. And this program for 988 will explain what it is. We've got some special guests, and we have them introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Jon Lane, the owner of OHSO, and tell me about the project and what you do for OHSO.
Sure. My name is Jon Lane. I'm a Phoenix resident, and I own OHSO Brewery. We started this program when it was 1-800-273-TALK. This program is just for awareness. So we create a beer, but you can rename a beer, relabel a beer, do whatever you'd like with it. And we hope that over the years we'll grow and grow and grow. It's to create awareness for a number. Now it's 988. And each year that we do it, if we help or continue to help to save one life, it's more than worth it.
And we should talk very specifically about what that number is. And we have another guest, and I'll have her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Beth Brady, the Vice President of Brand and Development for Solari Crisis and Human Services, and we are the 988 vendor for Arizona.
Okay, and so we're still talking around what this is, and you have a great logo, John, that was built around this, but it says on there, we can all help prevent suicide. This is a suicide awareness hotline, or a suicide hotline, and we're building awareness for that hotline. And the number has changed from a longer number to a shorter number, and so we're going to talk about that. That's the program. Have I got this right so far?
Yep.
Great.
The only change would be that it's a lifeline, not a hotline.
It's a lifeline. Okay. What's the difference between that? Can you tell us what the difference between a lifeline and a hotline is?
It's really about marketing, honestly. I think that we are a safety net for folks, so they can reach out to 988 at any time, and so we are that lifeline, where a hotline sounds, kind of like an antiquated, outdated...
Chaos.
Yeah,
Gotcha. So, this is to our members. John, you have how many Arizona breweries participating? Handful, lots, more?
It's a fair amount. I don't know the exact number. Every year it grows, especially right at the end. We kind of get a lot that get involved in the last couple of weeks, which we're coming up on. But I have not looked recently. We also have Colorado, New Mexico, Michigan. I got one in Florida the other day to agree. We have Pennsylvania, California. So we're trying to slowly grow this program over the years. And one of the things that we asked and we realized was we were asking a little bit too much in them to create their own beer. So this year and last year we started to say that to them, but a little too late, is just rename a beer. Rename a beer for the week, for the month, for the day, whatever you're comfortable with, just to bring awareness to those that are there at that time.
Sure. These are the people that said yes. We'll have some more information on that. They can actually go to your website, yeah?
Correct, and they can go to our website all year round. The resource is there. Right now it's front and center, and it is front and center normally the first few months, or the last few months leading into National Suicide Awareness Week, which is the first or second week of September, depending on the year, generally. But that resource sits on our website full time, all the time.
And the need never really disappears.
Never.
So,
Yeah. So what is? I mean, these are the people who have said yes. There are people who have said yes year over year. As a person running this on the brewery side, what seems to be the objection, or maybe the lack of people getting back to you on time? What's the big holdup on getting this across the country?
It's kind of all over the board. I think some people are uncomfortable with alcohol and suicide together, side by side, which is very understandable. I think some people just are bigger and have schedules, and no matter how far in advance I hit them up. I think other people just, it's kind of one of those, it's going to hit sort of a breaking point, and when it does, the floodgates will open and everybody will accept it. Just as we did with not talking about suicide.
Right. And this is for people who work in the industry. Yeah, I mean we're building awareness both to consumers and to the people we work with,
and hopefully to the general public. That number 988 isn't just a resource for those that are suffering, that need the help and want to call the lifeline. It's also for me to call and ask questions. Granted, the priority will always be on those that need the help. But hopefully I can ask questions if I'm not the one that's calling for the lifeline. I'm calling to understand how I can help, what I can do, what is the best avenue for me.
Yeah, that's something I learned in the last couple of years, that this is a way for people who, maybe have staff that report to them to get a better understanding of what they can do, to be comfortable with it, and to make sure that people have access to it. That's why I love the signage that we have and the tap rooms. So from the administrative side, the Lifeline side, what can you speak to as some of the challenges as we talk about the general public and maybe getting some businesses involved, some other charitable efforts to support this? What has been your experience?
Sure. Something I want to mention, I was thinking when Jon was talking, is I wonder how much stigma is still playing a role in people getting involved. I think that we would like to think that we've came a long way in terms of talking about suicide, trying to prevent suicide, but for a lot of people, it's still like a dark cloud that's hanging over their head. Maybe they've been personally impacted. There are a lot of myths around suicide. Like if we talk about it, then maybe that's going to put the idea in someone's head. That is absolutely not true. People are thinking about it. They're already thinking about it. If we mention it, it's not going to hurt anything. And in most cases, it's going to help. And so I think for, any breweries that are looking at getting involved who might have that fear, really, we could probably help with some education on that, because many more lives are going to be saved by joining this partnership than causing any harm. And I think we see some of that, in our own field, that there, as much as we promote talking about mental health and supporting suicide prevention, there are still a lot of people that are uncomfortable with it and frankly don't want to have conversations about it. It's kind of like a dirty little secret. But the more we talk about it, the more we normalize it, we're more likely to experience a mental health challenge than a physical health challenge. So 988 probably should have been in place before 911. And so for us in the field, this is a really exciting time because the general public are having conversations about mental health and suicide prevention, where in the past that just hasn't been the case. So with 988, a lot of people think this is a brand new off-the-shelf product, but this service has been in place for decades, and we're hoping that now more people are going to hear about it and utilize it.
Exactly, and what can we do in this industry? Yes, we are in the alcohol industry, but we can't stop doing what we do. So I think as we get more breweries participating, that stigma will go away a little bit. I will note that I think we talked for about 2 minutes before. I think I was the one that said suicide first, and I think it's still there. Like I think there's that trepidation about it, but in your experience, people don't necessarily know what action they're going to take. They just feel like they're in trouble and they should call it, right? I mean, I don't know if they have an end goal immediately when they pick up the phone. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think sometimes people are deterred by the terminology. So, 988 is called the Crisis and Suicide Lifeline. And the words crisis, the word suicide, I think some people feel like, oh gosh, it's not for me. I'm maybe feeling a little depressed, or I've had panic attacks. So, but this is for people that really are at their breaking point. And I think I speak for probably every center across the nation that we would much rather prevent a tragedy or a crisis from occurring and have people reach out sooner. I think everybody knows, if they've got health insurance, you can call for a counselor, but there are things that come up in life that you just don't know where to turn. And if it's at all related to mental health, that's what 988 is there for.
Right. So, again, it says we can all help prevent suicide. That's not wrong.
No, it's not.
But, if you don't have answers and you think it's heading in that direction, I think the thing to do is to pick up the phone. If it's not you, if it's somebody you know and you want to get access to more resources, this is an avenue for you as well, yes?
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Andrew, is there anything that you've heard that would prevent people from taking part in this? I mean, have you heard anything on the street? Because you are traveling and talking to people now.
I've only heard great things. The only thing I've heard from our brewery members is that they support it 100%. But I don't really have a lot of people that I'm interacting with constantly saying, I don't want to do it. It seems like just a great cause, and everyone is so aware these days about the struggles that everyone has to stay positive and sometimes just get out of bed. I mean, it's not new in this industry. It's not new in this world. It's just something that people are talking about now.
Yes. So, okay. I'm
And
sorry, John.
I'll tell you another, to add on to that. I don't necessarily know that people have, obviously people have problems with dealing with the word suicide, with no matter what it is. It's still a hush-hush. Right now, as I stare at a giant screen TV, I equate it to, well, we went from black and white TV to color TV. Color TV is, wow, huge advancement. Within 10 years, we went to flat screens that I could play a video streaming from. So we've improved our systems, 988. We've gotten a big goals set, but right now the goals are set, and hopefully we can grow this. I think a lot of people still, like you said, look at it like my parents did. It's something we didn't talk about ever. My neighbor I knew committed suicide. That was nobody talked about it. Nobody in the neighborhood talked about it. The mother or their wife, it was just a hush-hush thing. And
Yeah.
I think now we have the color TV that turned into the streaming video. We're growing this and growing this. Hopefully that word and those things start to change at a more rapid pace. And,
Sure.
And hopefully that's the goal with this.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that when we continue the podcast for our general listeners. We have a lot to talk about on that, I think, so put a pin in that. One last thing, we talked about the mechanics of the longer number and the shorter number. I have not heard this, but there is some things that people have said, oh, well, is this going to go directly to the police? That kind of thing. What's an answer for that?
Yeah, the answer for that is generally no is the answer. Of course, there are times when law enforcement has to be engaged if someone's life is on the line, like if there's a weapon and a plan to die by suicide. Crisis lines just can't respond as quickly as law enforcement, but crisis lines across the country, and I can speak definitely here for Solari in Arizona, we always want to use the least invasive intervention. And what that means is we want to do what the person is agreeable to, that makes them feel comfortable. And for the most part, that means having a conversation over the phone or over text and leaving it at that. Providing resources, providing non-judgmental support. Sometimes if people are thinking about suicide, but they know they can't have that conversation with a friend or family member, just speaking to someone on the phone who isn't going to judge them, who's going to hear them out, give them, some maybe pointers, let them know they understand how they got to this place and that that's okay. There's no judgment, but that things can change and they can turn around, really try to provide hope. And then connect them with more ongoing resources. Generally, that's all it takes for that first step and for that person to know that we're here if you need us. But we want to empower the individual to do what's best for them and not, force any type of services onto them, whether that's sending someone to their home, sending police. So we have a continuum of services that include telephonic support. We can send a mobile crisis team to the person's home or in the community, and that does not include law enforcement. Those are trained behavioral health professionals. And we actually work collaboratively with law enforcement. So if they are called out, someone calls 911 and they arrive on scene and identify that it's a mental health situation, they actually call us for help and they'll leave the scene. So we've tried to develop those relationships so that we can have mental health professionals responding to mental health crises.
Sure. So once you're on the line, once you're involved, you are an advocate that will get to the best resolution. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Great. And just to sum up for our brewery members, you don't have to do it today. This is when we're doing the big awareness campaign. This is when, if you brewed a beer, it's going to be available, renamed. But as Jon said, what else can you do? You can
do it anytime you want. You're going to save a life. Save a life. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. Make people aware. Have the conversation.
Great. If this email's been sitting in your box, send it to yourself every month and schedule it until you can just rename a beer. Or, if you need a sign, put up a sign. If you want to remind yourself to talk to your staff, that's a great time to do it. So don't think you missed it. Just think that you're going to do it in the future. And this is going to grow. And we all want to be a part of it because I think it's really important for our industry.
Speaking to our breweries specifically, the team at OHSO has also put together some partnerships to get discounts on raw materials. If you want to do a special beer that might be outside of your normal range or what you can invest, but you still want to get it done, they do have some resources on the website for that too.
So it's ohsobrewery.com. It's going to have a little pop-up, but isn't it also /988? Yes, ohsobrewery.com.
/988. Yep.
/988.
And it can be /988 hotline. I know not lifeline, but hotline. There's also, if you go on and if you just search, if you do Google search OHSO Brewery 988, it should come up. It was generating the other day. Obviously, those searches change all the time. But the goal, honestly, as you put it, was also full year. I mean, whenever. Like you said, whenever. This is a conversation to be had at any moment in our community meeting centers. So
great. Well, thank you guys for your time. I want you to stick around for the public side, but we're going to take a break. Hey, everybody. It's Andrew and I. We're here to talk about a special project that you might have seen in the last couple of years. It's been spearheaded by Jon Lane from OHSO Brewery. It is the 1-800-273-TALK or 988. And we have a guest here. I'd like to have her introduce herself and tell us what that number is for and what you can expect to call and who should be calling it. So go ahead and tell us who you are.
Sure. I'm Beth Brady, the Vice President of Brand and Development for Solari Crisis and Human Services. We're the 988 provider here in Arizona. And 988 is a national number. It's really for anyone who needs help with mental health or suicide prevention. You can call that number. It's called the 988 Crisis and Suicide Lifeline. And you should expect to be routed to a local center and for that person to, ask you what led to you calling today, how they can help, and provide some resources and support to take that first step towards feeling better. And I feel like you said one other thing now and I lost it.
It's okay. It's okay. I think you covered it. This is what the number's for. This is what you should expect. And we were talking, we did a little thing for our brewery members. People don't necessarily know what the plan is, but they feel crisis. They feel discomfort. They should certainly call, yes?
Absolutely. We would much rather prevent a crisis. So if it hasn't escalated to that point, that's okay. You can still call and help is available. And, if you are in the midst of a mental health crisis or thinking about suicide, we're absolutely prepared to support those concerns too.
Great. And we also have Jon Lane here, who we mentioned. We're actually in the Arcadia tap room brewery. And Jon, what led you to this project, and what's been your experience in being involved in this program?
What I was led to was another local restaurateur had experienced some issues, and also had many friends similar to I that have, unfortunately taken the path of suicide. Talking one day and 1-800-273-TALK came out of it. We were trying to name something. I thought, well, let's name it the number. Seems like the most appropriate thing, because then people will have the knowledge of what that number actually means. Above and beyond that, over the years, the reason that I've kept with it is, unfortunately, in my industry and many of my friends, and I'll say artists that I know, businessmen that I know, police officers that I know, lawyers that I know have gone that path. Being in the business I'm in, I'm social, and I know a lot more people than I would say the traditional person in their lifetime, because I shake hands and kiss babies for life. Anyway, so I've met all these people, and I just hear news, unfortunately, way too often. Too often.
Andrew, we've talked about how our breweries are third spaces. They are the new town square. They're where people choose to meet other people. It's not your work. It's not your home. We try to say that we're houses of hospitality. I think this is just an extension of that. Wouldn't you agree that this is part of disseminating important information about what's going on in the world?
People come into breweries particularly because they're especially friendly and they care more, I think, than the average place you might roll up to. Our staff love our guests, and it really creates a family environment where you want to take care of those people that come in, whether you're coworkers or they're guests. And I think the responsibility can feel like a lot sometimes to people in those positions. This gives them an option of a way to help more than just listening. I know how to listen really good. I just don't know what to say to you. So providing an option is really helpful.
Yeah. So Beth, I will tell you, and we didn't even get into whether you're a craft beer fan or not. It's okay. But I'm going to tell you that it's very common for someone to recognize someone that they've seen before and walk up to their table immediately and say, "What are you drinking?" And I guess even after COVID, people are like, "Yeah, try it," and literally offer that hospitality at the table between people. And so I think this is an ideal way to communicate to a demographic that I don't want to get into psychology and all that stuff, but upwardly mobile, maybe a lot more stress, not a lot of attachment to their job. This is like an ideal situation, but there is some stigma with having us be an alcohol industry and communicating this. How do you reconcile that? Do you see what we see?
Yeah, so I'm going to start by sharing the story of how we got connected to OHSO.
Perfect.
Cale reached out to our peer support warm line, and it got to our HR department and traveled through, I think, 5 different places before it got to me. And, with the bullet point that said, hey, we're looking to partner with a local crisis and suicide prevention company. Here's what we're doing. And my background's actually as a clinician, so I'm a licensed counselor. I started on the Crisis Lifeline 10 years ago, and I thought, ooh, alcohol. And the fundraiser, is attached to alcohol, which is the #1 substance highly correlated with suicide. And I'm also in charge of our brand, so I thought, ooh, what is this going to look like for us? And I shared those concerns with Cale, and he kind of said, well, that's up to you. We get it, but this is what we do, and this is what we have to offer. And so that caused me to sit back and think, kind of to the point of we have an opportunity to reach folks that we would never normally reach, which are general community members who are, going to their local brewery. And suicide does not, there's no prejudice, right? It can affect anyone. And so I think the opportunity of driving awareness, saving lives, it really took us over that concern of what is this going to look like. And I think that if we were able to do that as a suicide prevention company, I would hope that breweries would feel the same and be able to get over that stigma in order to save lives.
Sure. John, you have some thoughts on this too, right? I mean...
Well, yeah, being an untrained counselor, but a longtime bartender, I dealt with a lot of crisis, I would say, in people's lives over the years. I think Andrew could speak to this. I think anybody in our industry could probably speak to it. And now having this available, the 1-800, just gives us another resource to push towards them to say, hey, like you said, I can listen. I don't know what to say. I would love to be able to tell you exactly a good path or how you could get help or the resources, but it just seemed natural to me to put this in with the help of our team, because we've had team members struggle, and it's terrible. But you don't know where or what to do, even with an HR department. That HR often is untrained in where to send someone. It's kind of mind-blowing. Even in enormous corporations, HR has no idea about what to do about this. So
I'm gonna talk about a question I raised during the break in a different way. Right now, Andrew and I are a part of a beer judging educational process, and where we need to hear from people, and we're sort of teaching them a common language. And the more we talk about it, the more comfortable we are saying things. And like someone will say banana, and someone will say isoamyl acetate, and like we need to like bring those two things together. The more we talk about this, the more rough edges we're going to smooth over. But what I wanted to ask, Jon, is since you've been in this industry such a long time, definitely there's some different cohort groups. In other words, people are getting younger. People are maybe more diverse than when you started in terms of background. Do you think that conversation is getting easier with younger people, or do we have a long way to go?
I would say a lot of conversations are getting easier, including this one. I would say some are getting more difficult, but this is definitely much more free flowing. They're more willing to talk about it. They've experienced it in some manner in their life, or unfortunately because of social media and because of the way that we receive information, you've heard of someone that's done it. I mean, when I was younger, you just didn't hear of it. If it was on the news, it wasn't suicide. It was they died. It was rare to talk about.
They had an accident.
Exactly.
A lot of gun cleaning.
Yeah, I mean, and it's pretty amazing. Now the conversation's there, and unfortunately, like I said, it's there, but it's not amplified yet. It's come so long, but we're still kind of in a mono, sort of. We're in the acoustic version when it could be a rock band volume. I mean, so.
Well, great. Is this your experience as well, Beth?
Yeah, I think the conversations with youth are more free-flowing, as Jon said. But I also think that youth are far more connected than they've ever been, but they're also lonelier than they've ever been, right? So they're connected through social media, but we know those aren't real relationships and connections. And so youth and teens are still one of the highest rates of suicide in our country. So even though those conversations are happening, it seems that somewhere along the line, we're not doing enough to support youth as well as other groups that are at higher risk.
Are we noticing also with being post-COVID, as to whatever extent you want to define that, what was the impact of the shutdown, the lockdowns? Was there a lot more conversations, or were there fewer conversations? Have you noticed traffic? When do you notice traffic going up, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the pandemic shined a light on mental health problems are common, and you're going to experience them in your lifetime. And a lot of people experience them maybe for the first time during the pandemic. I think it was really challenging for youth who were used to being in school and having connections and, being in that environment and basically being forced into isolation, which isn't good for anyone. So I think we are still seeing the impact of that, even though schools are back in session and folks have came back. I think a lot was lost over those 2 years for folks feeling connected. And I think the youth were especially impacted because of not being able to be in school. I think adults were impacted in similar ways. Historically, over the course of the year, suicides tend to peak in the springtime. Common misconception is that it's over the holidays. That's actually a slower time for crisis lines because for a lot of folks, that's the one time that they are connected with friends and family.
I think we're going to take a quick break, and we'll talk a little bit about beer and what consumers can do to support. We'll touch a little bit about what some of the breweries have done, but we'll take a break and we'll catch you on the other side.
Hey, Rob. Welcome back from the break.
Thanks. What are you enjoying? Oh, I wish I could tell you what I'm enjoying because I didn't get it. But Cale is here to tell me what I had. Cale from OHSO Brewery Company.
Yeah. You have Crikey. It's a New Zealand Pale Ale. Brewed here in-house by Mr. Brett Waters.
And what do I have?
You have all beige everything.
All beige everything.
Yeah.
It just screams no rules, just right.
Yeah, does it?
Yeah. It just
Crikey.
screams that. Yeah.
Crikey. Yeah.
You made that out back.
Well, there's a lot of sunshine in that
Terrible.
pint for sure. Yeah.
Also with us is Josh Goodstein.
Hello. Get my podcast voice on. I think if you drop it an octave lower and speak really close to the microphone, you get that NPR effect.
That's what I do all day long, every single day.
Good to know.
Nice practice. You have been practicing.
So you were here, you listened in, and you heard Beth and you heard John talk. Did we miss any critical information, Mr. Cale, who's out in the field talking to people all the time, and the sales function of OHSO? What did we miss?
Some things that we could cover is you make a lot of connections. We work with local coffee roasters to do various beers, and they'll jump out and say, "Oh, yeah, we're down with that." Well, they don't brew beer, but guess what? They roast coffee. So, we could get other people on board, just whatever means they have. If you own a tap room, for sure you could buy any of our beers, but let's just say you're not anywhere in Arizona, but you heard the message and you want to support. Don't let you be hung up by not spreading the word just because you don't have that. Just ask a local brewery that you have their beer on if you can name it 988 to help bring that awareness out. So, eventually, the more years this goes on, we hope to get, more and more growth with that. But, whatever your means are, whether, you make tea or, coffee or whatever you might do, I don't care if this is something close and passionate. That's kind of what I think is kind of hard with knowing who this affects. It affects everybody on different levels. But again, nobody just, openly just says, I've been affected by this. But we all know it's a very sensitive subject, and we're just trying to bring that to light. So, any owner, anybody, any employee.
Let me just break this down because I think I know where you're going with this. Here it is. If you're a sales guy and you want to have a conversation with a bar and have a reason to go in there with beyond what you normally do, why not go in and say, hey, we like this 988 program. We want to be a part of it. We weren't able to do something. Let's plan something and do a little event, or let's use our beer, please, and let's see what we can do together. And if you're a retailer, right, and you want to be on that list for that allocated beer, maybe pick up the phone, have a conversation about this. I know you guys might have some signs laying around and some other swag. And of course, just being there and having an event that is different than all the other events. You're not, handing out glassware that everybody has or whatever.
There's
right?
beers, coasters, but the artwork that we have on our website is free. You can print it out anywhere you want, and you can have.
We did not cover that. That is an excellent point.
That's what I was going to get to, too.
Oh, stole it.
Wow.
Yoink.
I've got specific questions.
As long as it gets mentioned, I'm happy about it.
Yes. So it's a one-stop shop if you're a brewery.
Not only is the 12 and 16 ounce can art, there's poster art, there's promotional tools, all, and it's not plastered with just OHSO. This isn't our project. This is everybody's project, hopefully. There's space for you to cut your logo into it. There's numbers to reach for local and national hotlines. Everything you need is on that website, ohsobrewery.com/988-hotline. Ding.
Look at that. So now that you're talking, let's talk about beer.
Wait, I did have one thing before we get to the beer.
Okay.
Okay, one last thing. So we were talking earlier, or they were talking earlier, about the term suicide being stigmatized or people having a difficult time approaching it, and not bringing any politics or anything into this. Things like sex were faux pas to talk about. Things like abortion, politics even. People never talked about any of those things. Like, nobody knew any of that stuff about anyone until people started talking about it and sharing more, and things became less stigmatized to talk about. So suicide is scary, but it should scare you because people are dying and it's preventable. So that's what suicide is like. we should talk about it. It shouldn't be a stigma thing. It should be like you're having a mental health crisis. There's resources for it, like 988. There's people that you can talk to, and it becomes less stigmatized, just like any mental health issue becomes less stigmatized. Anyway, let's talk about the beer.
Let's talk about the beer. My partner Andrew here expertly changing the batteries on the GoPro just kind of I'm kind of killing a little time. Wait, no,
Maybe not.
We
so
may not get
expertly,
there.
kind of fumbling poorly.
It's all right,
Think
we
I'm
got
going
the-
to break your camera.
We got the backup cam. We'll shoot a lot of B-roll.
that's fine.
So the beer,
I look better from behind.
the beer recipe, sir. You've done a couple of these, or been part of the team.
Fifth one.
So this
Yeah,
is
we did a couple during COVID because it just felt extremely necessary.
Right. So some breweries are looking for that guidance, and some consumers are looking for this consistency where like they can go, hey, I had their version, I had this other version. You guys probably don't dictate yeast or process, obviously. So
No,
what's in the current recipe?
So
now?
we threw out a couple example recipes of 3 different kinds, but mostly we wanted people to let their inspiration take them where they want to. As brewers, if we get a chance to play, that's usually enjoyable. So we as a group didn't feel like we should dictate style, because most importantly, there's some of our taproom partners that may want to carry many of these, and if it's just all IPAs or all one style, it kind of limits the ability to promote all of the different creativity and expertise that all of the brewers are sharing in. That being said, the style we chose was a hazy IPA just because it tends to be pretty popular. We used some great malt that we got from our suppliers at BSG, who are offering a 15% discount if you mention the 988 beer when you order malt for this product. We used hops that we got from Hophead Farms, which also have a list of discounted hops on the website that they're charging $9.88 a pound for. But ours, we have Mosaic, Citra, and Cryopop, as well as some Incognito in there. It should be a really delicious hazy IPA, clocking in at about 6.7%, and it was just dry hop today, as a matter of fact.
And Cale, they can find it on the website, and that website is
988 OHSO Brewery.
man. Josh,
Oh,
bail
so
him out.
OHSO.com
/988
hotline.
hotline.
Hyphen
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, maybe just one of you say that.
You.
OHSO brewery.com /988-hotline.
Oh, yeah.
Not 2 dashes. Or 2 hyphens.
Wow.
One singular
Wow.
hyphen.
So-
we'll put the link in the YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
easy.
there's probably breweries that wanted you to have a recipe just so they wouldn't make that beer, right? Like they're like, oh, like I want to see what they're going to offer. I'm like, I'm not going to do that, right?
Well, we threw out so the grain bill essentially for the IPA suggestion that's on that website is similar to what we do. I mean, hazies, it's just a bunch of adjunct with some light base malt. We did throw a lager recipe up there, and we did throw a light stout recipe up there as well. If somebody wanted some guidance, some people, I know there's a couple home brewers that mentioned they were going to try and brew like a 5-gallon batch, which I'm hoping they bring us some samples of.
Yeah, excellent. And I was just in Flagstaff. I was at Beaver Street on Thursday, and while we were there, a keg kicked. So they had put theirs out a little earlier than most, but
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, Beaver Street's got Beaver Street Lumberyard family. Their kegs are already at all of the OHSOs. I know it's on draft at Paradise Valley. Was it on draft here?
They all got them. I don't know if it's on draft.
Yeah, but I know it's already on draft at PV. So if you're looking to already start supporting this cause and try one of the multitude of varieties.
But it's got to be, essentially renaming the beers, it's no pressure. We don't want you to have to put it into your schedule. If you just rename it, it's just getting the content out there. So,
That's true.
You know, if you're on board like we've been, or, again, Lumberyard, Beaver Street, they put it in the books, they brewed their own thing, but everybody at a brewery believes they make a good beer. So just keep that recipe and just rename it for the week. And that's as simple as it can be.
right.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure or shame on the proceeds. You do what you can.
Just gonna say.
But you're happy if we had most of the craft breweries that and also beer bars, we had a bunch of those with 988 beers. We're all happy that we're spreading the word, and if we can, make this a more regular thing, it's not about the proceeds, and you can choose who you donate those to, right? I mean, there's no requirement, there's no reporting requirement. We prefer that you do something that makes sense for your business.
Yep. We ask if they give us the who they're donating to. Like my friend Jeff, who you guys all know, who's runs Laughing Monk Brewery in San Francisco. They donate to a local suicide chapter in their neighborhood, and if we can even post that on the website, like we've listed, different people that are and where contributions are going. And don't get hung up by that proceed amount, like Rob was saying as well. The goal of this is awareness of the number and destigmatization of this topic. Like that is the number one goal. Probably the top 5 goals is just 988 and making this something that people feel comfortable talking about. The money stuff is great if we can help. If that's a problem, that's not the issue right now. It's getting that number out there.
We had Beth on that administers, their company administers it, the 988 number. We can all sort of follow along on what nonprofits that you guys. Beth, you're here. Are you a nonprofit or not? They are a nonprofit, so you can look at who they are. We'll put some information on the pod. You can follow the lead of some other breweries. If there's an organization that suits your needs that does a similar project, I mean, anything you want to do, anything. But if you just say, hey, I'm new to this game, I just want to put it out there, I want to make sure my staff knows that they can spread information on how important this is.
That they can call it?
For a day, a week.
Yeah,
well, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was in June the first time I tried calling it. Is when it was 1-800, I'd called it to try and just see who I got, and I got a live person and asked them, what they could tell me as far as like what the typical process goes and who they send you to. When I knew 988 was coming out, I tried in June, even though the technical launch wasn't until July. Arizona was already active, and I think I pushed one prompt and then got through to somebody. I was asking them how their call volume was. They weren't allowed to tell me some things, and I was just curious to see what kind of feedback they were and where they send people for resources. But they listed a myriad of like different ways that they can handle situations or try and just be there as a listening ear on the other end of the phone, which is
But again,
incredible.
it's not just for people who are like, I have nowhere to go. It's, I have a friend who's talking like this. I have this happened, and I feel like, like we were hanging out and I missed the signs or something. Like
it's so important to say.
The resources aren't just for this one avenue. It's spread around.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be for you.
We talked about how connected our community is around this product. If you feel like your opinion matters to your cohort group, or if you lead a team, whether in this industry or not, if you feel like you can be a hub of information, and you have questions about working and what the signs are, this is something that you need to understand and look into, and that's really the most important part. If we can connect people with the right resources when they need it most, the money isn't the important thing at all.
Or if you're in a family with parents struggle, children struggle, neighbors, doesn't just have to be people at work or people in your business, or even just friends. Like, it's even harder to talk to family members about things like that. So
yeah, and one last thing before you think this, like you wonder if this actually works and if people notice this. One example that our friend Chris at Prison Hill let us share was last year had the 1-800 beer on the board, and the next day got a message from a patron that just said, like, I was struggling, looked up, saw it, and I called it. Like, it works. Like, it is absolute. People notice this thing. And yes, like whether whether there's the conflict of like being in beer, that's the business we're in. This is what we do, and every type of person comes through our doors, and people are struggling. So, and it works.
Great. Guys, did we miss anything? I think we covered a lot here, and I don't want to, go over too much, but we covered everything, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just you can put my info out there. If people have questions and want to reach out to me, I'm sure John would say the same, or Josh with beer. I mean, any questions you might have for your brewery or your tap room or whatever business, how you could participate. If you're still having questions on how to do that, we'll
Sure.
guide you.
I thought I even saw 988 at OHSObrewery.com.
That is exactly it.
Oh, I do some research,
The
babe.
email? Yeah. So you can contact...
And it actually comes to all of us, all the people that Cale just messaged.
You can contact any of those folks if you're a guild member, allied or brewery. You can contact Andrew and I, and we'll connect you. And I don't have any boundaries on whatever your business is. If you think this is important to you, we can figure out a way to get you involved. So I appreciate everyone's time. I would like to thank Beth and John for being on earlier. Josh and Cale, of course.
Marcus, you're here. Text,
Right on.
Text Brew for Hope, 44321.
Got it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.